Hello. Just wait for a few people to join us. Hello, hello. Hi. Okay, I'm gonna add Kay in here, so everybody just bear with me. Started for our talk with Kay. Here we go. Here we go.
Hi.
Hi. Quick and easy today.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. How's the weather out there?
Actually, going to be a beautiful day. It's really starting to warm up.
Good. It's
Yeah.
all rain here, so I'm gonna live vicariously through you today.
Better than earthquakes.
That's true. That's true. I'll take it.
Yep.
Okay, so Kay, before we get started, I'm gonna ask you a question. How do I pronounce your last name so I don't mess it up?
Flierl.
Flierl. Okay. So thank you to everybody who has joined us already. We're gonna start our talk with Kay Flierl. See, I was saying Flierl, which is harder to pronounce.
Actually, that's more correct.
Okay. Well, all right, good.
That way.
All right.
We've
Oh,
tried.
sorry, you cut out a little bit. What was
My
that?
father-in-law pronounces it that way, but we've kind of Americanized it, I guess, along the way.
Okay. All right. Well, fair enough. Flairal is easier to say anyway, so that works for me. We're gonna start off with Kay Flierl. She is one of our wonderful artists at Sorel. I'm Christine. I manage the marketing at Sorel, and we're gonna have a long talk today about Kay's work, Kay's process, everything. But we're gonna start off. Kay's gonna kick it off with a little pan around her beautiful studio. So I'm gonna pass it off to you, Kay, and then we'll get started with our Q&A.
Great.
Ooh.
Okay, so I have a studio. We built one in our backyard, which is great. Makes it super convenient. And so that's the yard there, which is actually still kind of ugly until we get some leaves. um, but in any case, it's small, but it's super efficient in here. I think I can't remember the dimensions, maybe like 10 by 12 is the dimensions of the space itself.
Oh.
So I've learned how to make use of the space in every way that I possibly can.
Yeah.
I have work on this back wall. I really use it for hanging work that's either drying. I have a dog that tends to come in here and she likes to tattoo herself on the on the paintings when they're wet. And so if I can keep them above the floor ground, it's always a better scenario. Over here, I just have some earlier plein air work that I did out in California. This piece here is actually the study that I did for probably my largest painting to date, which was 6 foot by 9 foot. It was commissioned by a Ocean Hills Country Club. So they've got that in their main hall space. And that was pretty fun to do. Huge challenge, but it was kind of, I went from this size to 6 foot by 9 foot, nothing in between.
Oh, wow.
But I kind of like that bold, challenge of here we go.
Yeah.
I also do a lot of figure work. This was actually from a class recently that I did with Ingrid Christensen, who's awesome. One of my favorite contemporary current artists. These are just some earlier pieces that was really early on there. And then we've got the barns, which I do now. I've been doing barns, I think the entire time I've been painting. So it's probably my longest series. Again, more class figure work here. And then behind my thinking chair, I've got, and this kind of shows you the depth. This is really only a fraction I would say, yeah, a small fraction of the number of plein air paintings that I've done.
Oh my
Um, we
gosh.
were we were in California 16 years, so I spent a good deal doing that. And then my main workspace is right here. Again, I've kind of cluttered it up, but it holds all the necessary things. I do paint from photograph in the studio, and so I've got my monitor, and of course, all my favorite artists' books. And then this wall over here is mainly my painting wall. I've started a new series in the garden lyrics, kind of just a different um, direction from the leaves. And this is the water lilies that I've been working on. So, and I use my easel and the wall interchangeably. Um, just kind of, I actually have a lot of windows in here. And in the winter, the sun changes quite a bit. You know, it's so much lower. So I'm always kind of moving around in my studio trying to find the right spot for lighting
Right.
and not being glared. So that's about it. That's Abby out there. She keeps me company all the time.
Yeah. Love that. Well, it's you said it's a small space, but you pack a ton in there, so you're making really good use of it. Okay, great. So I guess we'll just start with if you could tell us where are you from originally and where are you located now? Where is your amazing studio?
So Denver. We've been here 7 years this last period. I was born actually in Wisconsin, which is where the barns come from. Um, I lived there until I was 11, and then my family moved to Denver. Actually, in 1974, my dad was transferred out here for his job, and went to school here. Went to Colorado State University. Actually, got a degree in horticulture and landscape design. Um, didn't work in that, but then I moved into graphic design from there. Met my husband at school, and we got married just right after school. And then the economy turned down here in Denver. That was in 1987. And so he got a job in California and we up and went. And we were there a short period, I think it was about 5 or 6 years. And then we moved back to Colorado because I was ready to start a family and wanted to be near family. Um, we were here another short period, probably about 6 or 7 years, and then my husband's job took us to Atlanta. So we lived in Atlanta 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
and we got transferred to California. So we were back in Newport Beach again, which was great. We kind of wanted to move west again. Loved Atlanta, absolutely loved it. Had a great community of friends and things, but um, I just love being outdoors, and Atlanta isn't very conducive to that all the time. So we then lived in California for another 11 years, and then we moved back here in 2017. So um, ended up here after college, and we thought it was time to go back. We needed to be here for our parents and things. So um,
Yeah.
hopped around a bit, but it's been fun.
Yeah, great. So you mentioned that you had gotten into graphic design for in terms of a career. So how did that transition into you getting started as a fine artist and with your current style and medium?
Yeah. So I really haven't stopped doing graphic design. I do it a very small amount now, but it's just been something that I've been pulled in and out of for different reasons, and so I still do it.
Yeah.
um, but I did learn a lot of skills. Even though I didn't get a degree in fine art, I did in the landscape design program and horticulture program. We actually did get a lot of design skills, you know, as far as composition and color, and um, just I learned more botanical names than I'll ever want to know.
Yeah.
Um, but I just moved quickly into advertising and graphic design, and I loved it. It was a great creative outlet for me, but I always had this desire to paint. And um, I think it was around the age of 40 that we actually moved into a house in Atlanta, and the walls were bare. And I just thought, you know what? I really wanted to paint. I'm just going to give it a try. So I did a lot of reading, just trying to understand how everything worked with paints and everything. Um, they took a few workshop classes, and that helped getting a little more personal attention as far as, things that were uh, particular to putting on the canvas. And so shortly after that, I actually ended up with cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it was a huge surprise actually. Um, but I had just started painting prior to that. And when that happened, I was just in a whole different state of mind. And
Yeah.
I remember the canvas that I had that sat on the easel. It was halfway done during the whole chemotherapy. And finally, I was able to get back to the easel. And that's kind of where it just exploded from there, because it was just a great therapeutic outlet for me.
Yeah.
And so I just kept painting. And then I had a lot of people that kept commenting on, just neighbors and things that came over to the house, and they made comments about the paintings. And so I sought out a interior designer that worked with my husband, and just to get her opinion and see what she thought. And she was actually opening a retail store at that time. And she said she'd put them in the store. So I said, okay. And then from there, they sold in that retail spot. And my first gallery that I associated with it, which is Greg Irby in Atlanta. She saw my work there. And uh, uh, so I've been with her for 25 years or so. Um, so then when we moved to California from Atlanta, that's when I moved into all the plein air work. It was just kind of, Laguna was just a few miles down the road from us in Newport Beach. And it was kind of hard not to get drawn into it, doing, in the painting world there, that is the main emphasis. And of course, it's beautiful. So you're outdoors and you're on the beach, and it's a big draw.
Yeah.
But it was just a great community. Plein air had just started a resurgence. And I would say, I think I was kind of like a second generation of that resurgence. So I was able to study under some of the best plein air painters. Um, Michael Obermeyer, Randall Sexton, there's a number of them, Ray Roberts. And we just painted alongside each other a lot. And I was part of a lot of art associations there. And then it just became a daily life for me. And I did a lot of shows on my own, which was great because I could get the feedback straight one-on-one with the people who were buying my work, which is an opportunity. When you sell through gallery, you don't ever get to hear the how people receive it. So that was very valuable. And then we moved back to Colorado, and I was already in two galleries at that time. So the gallery work was taking, precedence over the plein air, but I was doing both of them alongside each other. The gallery work was a lot more abstract and large format from the plein air. But then the plein air work I sold at the shows there along the coast. And so it was a great, combination. And then when we moved back to Colorado, I knew wasn't good exposure for me every day. Um, and so, and again, I had the galleries and the demands there. And so I just kind of zeroed back in on the studio work. So I do plein air paint rarely at this point,
Mhm.
but so much, in the number of years that I was doing it, that I know what I'm seeing now, and I know what a camera doesn't catch. And so I'm able to do, and really, in my work, I'm not looking for an exact representation anymore. I kind of seek a fine line between abstract and representational. Um, so I think that lends itself to my studio work pretty well.
Mhm. So, as far as process goes, you kind of started to get into this a little bit, but like if you are doing, because you've got your monitor in your studio space, and you said you're looking at that when you're painting. You still do the plein air work. You've got more abstracted botanicals. What's your process look like for one or either or any of your series? I suppose let's talk about the plein air stuff first, because like how do you, are there days you have to move into the studio and you can't do it plein air, and then how do you accommodate for that if you wanted, like what does that process look like? What are some of the challenges associated with it, and how do you kind of move through that process on any given day?
So that was a challenge when I was in California, because the outdoors, I was drawn, you know,
Mhm.
like there's nothing like putting your feet in the sand and standing there and painting a painting.
Yeah. No, I can't imagine.
It's a great thing. And so, I was drawn out there. And most of the work that I was selling was done on like a 3 hour period of time. And so complete a lot of paintings quickly. Um, and those really sold as they were, just small 9 by 12 paintings. And so I didn't typically take them back into the studio from there, although commission work I would, if somebody wanted a 30 by 40 of something that I did, then yeah, I would use either that study or a photograph,
Mhm.
do that. But now, where I'm at in my career now, it's really, I had the opportunity to take photos everywhere we've lived. And so I've got everything from the East Coast to the West Coast and in between.
Wow.
So I have a lot of subject material, and I had the personal experience of being there. So I know the environments. So I really am more, in my process, I'm more just trying to find what it is that I'm trying to say, as far as, um, I don't know. Uh, I don't know what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
but no, it's a process, and it's all about composition and the way that I put the paint down. Um, it can be a challenge, because there are many days where I still want to go outside and just paint, and I really haven't done that much.
Oh, it looks like.
You can be outdoors, at least for me. I don't really want to have my fingers freezing as I'm painting.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm just primarily in the studio most of the time. And again, it's also, what I'm selling in the galleries is pretty much all large format, anything from 24 by 24 up to, well, the one was 6 foot by 9 foot, but typically my happy size canvas is like a 36 by 36 or 40 by 40.
Okay. Um, so, and then what about the like abstracted floral work, the kind of botanicals? I mean, we've kind of hopped around referring to, and I think you're when you're saying your gallery work, are you referring to the abstracted botanicals or something different? Just so I'm clear.
So plein air work is not in the galleries primarily.
Got
It
it.
it is a little bit in Southern
Got
California, but that's really carries my plein air
it.
anymore.
Okay.
Everything else is the large garden
Got it.
lyrics, barns, and the beach series.
Barnes and Beach. Oh, okay, got it, got it. Um, so I mean, you have these different styles. You've got coastal pieces, you've got the barns, you've got abstract work that focus. They're sort of, if anyone hasn't seen them who's listening, I recommend you go look at them. They're beautiful, but they're range of colors. You don't seem tied down to any particular palette, but they're really beautiful, abstracted. They're not quite floral, but they're like leaves and botanicals. They're beautiful, really contemporary looking. So how do you kind of balance yourself between these different bodies of work? Like, it can be very hard, and I always want to hear from artists who have multiple bodies of work that they're sort of working with. We have several artists at Sorel who do this, and I'm fascinated by it because in today's social media age, and the age where everyone is a brand, and this is, a little, to me, a little concerning, if I'm being honest. It can be stifling, I would imagine, for an artist when you want to go in a different direction. So every time I ask an artist, what are you inspired by? They go, everything. I'm inspired by everything. That's always the answer. I don't think I've ever heard, I've never asked that question and had a different answer. So when you are inspired by multiple things, let's say maybe not everything, how do you balance this in today's art world? And did it make a difference for you? Was it a challenge to have these two things? Did it ever bother you or concern you? And if it did, you clearly have, made your way through it, but how did you make your way through that? And how did you find the balance? But how do you think they inform one another, or are they totally separate? Are these like different parts of your personality that you just pump out, or is there something that's kind of interrelated with all of them?
Actually, I do kind of just pump them out because still a different way every day I step into the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm drawn to doing the garden lyrics. Sometimes I'm drawn to doing a barn, and I really don't know what it is that I think. It's just I don't like to do the same thing over and over again, and I need to push myself in different directions so that I grow as an artist. Um, but and of course a lot of the driving factor is the gallery itself, because when paintings sell, I have to replace them. And
Yeah.
galleries, I think all of them carry a little bit of each of the series. So it's not like it's kind of an equal um, painting, really. Actually, I would say from the time I was in California, because I was doing so much plein air work, I was like, oh my gosh, do I go complete plein air, or do I keep my galleries going? Which was, I definitely wanted to do that. So that was probably the biggest struggle. And I was still a young painter at that time, so I was still working through a heck of a lot of things, just trying to figure out what I wanted to say, how I'm going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
subject material. And I was a part of a lot of associations where I could talk that through with a lot of good friends, and that helped. Then time just went on, and again, I just kept supplying the galleries, and that was really where my heart was, because I love to paint large. It's just so much more freeing. I can do more with the size of the canvas in my mind than I can, when you're doing 9 by 12, it's like,
Yeah.
um, that started taking precedence in my mind. And what I've always been trying to do, like I said before, is that I really want to I'm drawn to art that surprises me. So the way I look at abstract art, which I'm not talking just color fields, I'm talking actual subject matter that is shown in a different way. I like to be surprised by that, by artists.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been trying to do that with my own art. So I've got leaves, I've got water lilies, I've got barns, and I don't typically put them in their actual environment, so to speak, because I want the subject that that inspires me to be the focus and not its place in context, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think, like with the barns in particular, I think it's easier for people to relate to that because it doesn't show them in their environment per se. And really, like if you just look at this barn here, I love the graphic quality of what's going on in the foreground. That's what excites me.
Yeah.
The graphic quality that I put into the barn itself. I don't want to show it realistically. And it's just kind of my way of speaking from my heart, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't struggle with it anymore. Right now, I just paint what I feel like painting. And thankfully, there's times where I have to do garden lyrics because they're needed in the gallery. And, but with the ability to switch between the two, I just never get bored. So I'm always like, okay, I'll work on some barns now.
Yeah. Well, so, and you've talked about like how with the plein air painting, like you moved to California and this was something that was going on and you have beach right down the road. How did you start out with the botanicals that are abstracted? Like with abstract work, it's funny. I feel like, if you're doing a landscape, you go, well, this is my inspiration. But if you're deconstructing leaves and you've got this really contemporary style, um,
Yeah.
and it's something that it's sort of like it's not a scene. You're diving really deeply into a small thing and you're expanding it and you're simplifying it and you're abstracting it and you're taking it apart in many ways. How where did that come from?
So, I think what I don't want to do is just show leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Am I trying to think about what the leaf represents more than what the leaf is on the exterior?
Mm.
I don't really remember how that came about, how the leaves came about, except that as I thought about it after the fact, because I kept coming back to these leaves and why am I painting leaves? Why am I painting barns? But the leaves in particular, I grew up going to the lakes in Wisconsin every summer. It was just what we did as a family and it was fun. And back then I could wander as a 6-year-old or 10-year-old
Yeah.
and I would go for walks and I would walk along the lake. I remember just loving sitting beside the lake with the water in front of me and the trees above me. And so I always have these memories kind of in my mind of these leaves overhanging the water. And I realized that that's actually what I was showing in the painting before I even, it wasn't a conscious thing that I was doing, like, oh, I'm going to put these leaves over water. But the way I was coming at the placing the paint onto canvas, all of a sudden I started seeing water and I was like, oh my gosh, and then it all kind of came together.
Yeah.
I still today love walking around any kind of body of water, and with trees overhanging. So that was really, I think, where that all came from. And then, I just I love the graphic quality. So in a painting, so I try to mix up between, I use a brush, I use a palette knife, I use oil stick, just so I get a lot of different things. And I think we're buffering. There you
Oh,
are.
sorry. Yeah, you cut out a little bit. So I heard up until you said you used oil stick and then you cut.
Oh, just that I'm after a graphic quality that mixes all of those things together and just is unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of interesting. I am interested to hear, like, you've talked a lot about about this sort of slow progression and the introduction of the plein air paintings and the different sort of subjects you're capturing. But what would you say from like your first painting to now? What would you say is the primary uh, primary change you've recognized in yourself as an artist when you're coming back to the easel, or and it doesn't have to be specific to like the plein air. It could be just you as an artist when you come back to the canvas. What's a change that you've noticed from that first couple of paintings to where you are in your career as an artist now?
I would say confidence is the number one thing.
Yeah.
And really, it's still a questioning process in how I want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But before, the struggle of what to paint was more the struggle. And today it's more like how I want to put the paint down.
Mm.
Because I know, I've got kind of the subject material figured out, at least for now. I'm happy with it right now, but I just come at it with a lot more confidence, and I can see that in the playfulness of what I'm doing with like oil stick and things like that. So I think I would say that would be the biggest.
Yeah, that makes sense. And are there any particular artists who have inspired you over the years or continue to inspire you now?
I love looking at different artists' work, and I'm constantly doing that. And I think you have to do that in order to understand how other artists progressed. And it's kind of interesting to me to see the different bodies of work that other artists go through too. Even though maybe they may not have sold them all, they still did them.
Yeah.
I do work. I've taken classes in the last year because the figure is challenging, and it keeps me fresh in what I'm doing. I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Oh, artists that inspire you, and you were saying that you're constantly inspired by their progression.
The main, I think early on, of course, Wolf Kahn was probably one of the biggest because I just loved his barns. I loved his color application, the way he represented a representational thing in an abstract way. So he's one. Soraya is the figure. I mean, nothing better than that. Gosh, I don't know. I'm always following different artists. There's a lot of contemporary artists that I follow, like Ingrid Christensen. I mentioned she's an amazing figure painter. She's from, and she too sees a figure, but she doesn't represent the figure in its complete totality. It's a lot of short brushwork, which Bertha Morisot, I think that's how you pronounce her name. I saw that exhibit here in Denver, and I was blown away because all these it's so confident because it's not layers of painting. It's just these brush strokes that are just, there's obviously layers, but I was just, it's amazing how she captured the figure.
Yeah, definitely. And what is your goal as an artist? You had very briefly mentioned something about your message, but what would you say is your goal, or if you do have a message, what is it for people just interacting with your work?
I am so thankful to everybody who has bought a painting of mine, and it still blows me away. Even my husband, he's like, people buy your paintings and put them on your wall, on their wall. It really is an amazing thing, like, why? Because I know I'm drawn to what I do, but to see that other people are as well it's just an amazing gift, I have to say. And I think, my goal is to be able to continue to do this, and people buying the paintings allows me to do that. So I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I like the fact that a barn speaks to somebody, because I would say almost everybody in this country has their heritage in one way or another on the farm. So people connect, and know, whether somebody wants another red barn or not, it doesn't matter to me, because if that speaks to somebody, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Um,
And I have to say, like, that's an interesting point you make, that like we all have heritage on a farm, some tie back to that. But I think it's also really interesting, as you were talking, it popped into my head, like, how often do we just drive by barns and we just go, there's an old barn. Who cares? You don't see it.
oh,
But like the act of like making a barn the subject of your time, like enough to render it in this like really different way, like you've given this thing that we pass by such focus and attention, and then someone has gone, that's beautiful, and then they want to put it on their wall. Like, that's such an amazing thing for things that we so often just overlook and don't even think twice about.
I think that's why I do capture them, because oh my God, the history there is,
Right.
and the barns in particular show that.
Yeah.
All the environmental effects on them have just worn them
Yeah.
down. And unfortunately, we're losing a lot of them. I just hate to see it. And really, I'm attracted to an old barn way more than I'm attracted to a new barn.
Yeah. Yeah.
A new barn, and I'm like, no. Next one. I went, traveled to Vermont and Connecticut and New Hampshire just in the fall of last year, and I tell you, if I could live another place, that would be it.
Wow.
I was amazed at the countryside, and just the element of surprise everywhere I drove. My daughter and I did a trip together, which was a gift in itself. But
Yeah.
um, so many barns.
A lot of barns. There's so many barns.
But I love that they're still preserved. There's many that are
Yes.
not, and
Yeah. It's a mix.
but the way they sit on the hillside, it's gorgeous. So
Yeah, it is funny when you see, like, I'm very used to seeing kind of an old barn that's falling apart, and it is funny how when you see one that has been preserved, and it's not like brand spanking new, it's an old barn that somebody put something into, you do notice it, and you really see it. It is funny how it's like you can see the care somebody put into something, because it's old, but you know that someone's actually put time into it, and it does. Usually I'm just driving by when I see them, but I do notice even in those like few seconds. So yeah, New England does have like a really amazing mix of old and new barns that are pretty striking,
yeah,
for different reasons.
definitely. And it's pretty dangerous to drive there, with me at least.
Oh.
Because I'm just like pulling over on the side of the road. Oh my God, am I gonna live?
Yeah. Well, I did you get a lot of good photo references for some paintings out of that trip? Yeah, that's good.
And
That's really good.
Wisconsin for a family reunion last year as well, so I got a good supply of barns to do me for a while.
Nice. That's awesome. Okay, so we're gonna do something a little different now. We're just gonna do a quick this or that section before we wrap up, because we've been talking for almost 40 minutes, which I can't believe. Okay, so first thing, are you a morning person or a night person?
Morning.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dog.
I could
Dog.
have guessed that one. You've got a studio assistant, a canine studio assistant.
Yep.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Warm weather or cold weather?
Uh,
Oh wait, you're frozen. Hang on. Wait.
Shorter. Are you there? Oh,
Wait, sorry. Sorry, you froze. Go ahead.
I said
So
I wish that the cold season was a little shorter here in Colorado, but
yeah.
but I do like the seasons. I'm a lot more on the warm side. Like, give me warm any day, and I'm happy. I never get too hot.
Yeah. Good. Do you ski at least?
Yeah, but once we had a family and the expense of it, and I've broken bones, I don't
Oh.
want to do that.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Yeah. All right, if you could be any animal, what would you be?
Um, it was hard choice between a dog or a bird because I love birds. I even have a little clock here. Oops, I gotta show you.
Oh,
And it chirps on the hour with a different bird sound.
that's so funny.
So, my dad was terribly into birds. He carved them. He was the artist of our family before me. But carved birds and paint them and painted murals in their home and things. So I do have an attachment to birds for sure.
Would there be a specific bird you would want to be?
Um, a blue jay is special to my heart because of him
Okay.
and my daughter. So we're good there.
All right.
But dogs, I love dogs. They're just constant love.
Yes, that's true. Okay, and finally, what is your favorite place on Earth?
I don't have one. I don't think. I really tried hard to think about that. I I think every place has something to offer, and it's. I'm surprised in this country as much as I am internationally, which I haven't traveled that much. I've been to London internationally, but I just became a second citizen of Luxembourg almost a couple of years ago. And so that's on my bucket list to get there.
I've been to Luxembourg.
Dual citizen. What did I say? Second citizen?
Yeah. You did say second citizen, but I knew you're like a dual citizen now. So I don't know. I mean, I somehow have been to Luxembourg, and I will say it's the cleanest place I've ever been.
You're one of the few people I know that's actually been
Yes. So I grew up traveling because of my dad's job. We lived in a different country every couple of years. And I went for my school, I was in honor band, and we had our honor band concert there. So I went there for 4 days, and I stayed with a host family. Wow. Yeah. So I've never heard anyone mention Luxembourg. So I finally get to tell someone it's the cleanest, most quaint, and I've never seen any place that well, I'm sure there are places in Europe, throughout Europe, like this, but I've never been so struck by like the old beautifully kept building next to a brand new glass building look. Like the juxtaposition was, and I was like, I must have been 12 or 13, and I know, like, for a preteen to notice. Wow. And it stuck with me. So I hope I want you to go to Luxembourg. I want a lot of people to go there. It's so quaint and beautiful and small, but just like I've never seen any place so clean, and the people there are just, yeah. And I remember from many years ago. That was a long time ago. So that's very cool that you became a dual citizen of Luxembourg. I'm a huge Luxembourg fan.
Yeah. It was just something that came our way, and I think it was about 25 of my relatives. We all did it at once because of I guess if you're a part of the all male heritage, they passed a new article where you could get dual citizenship in a very simple process as long as you show that bloodline. And us like 6 months with just paperwork that we submitted through somebody who's a family friend in Wisconsin. He's actually a priest, or was a priest, and he helps people get dual citizenship now. But the towns in Wisconsin are small, and everybody knew everybody, and so somehow the contact happened, and we all did it together. And so in 6 months we became dual citizens, where I guess it takes normally, like, I think you have to be a resident 5 years.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
So go figure.
That's amazing. I mean, and I mean, like, just, I don't know, if you have an EU passport, I feel like you're going to be in the shorter lines in the airport. I mean, like, there's so many nice things about that. Well, I hope you go soon. I wish you the best travels over to Luxembourg, and I hope that you find a lot of great barns, and I know you'll find great, just general buildings and everything. So I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Well, Thank you so much, Kay. This was so great to talk to you. For anyone who's listening, if you only caught the tail end of anything, this is all going to go up on our blog. We're going to email it out to everybody, and you'll be able to read our discussion as well. So, Kay, do you have anything you want to say before we sign off for the day?
I just thank you very much, Christine. It was awesome, fun, and I just again thank you to everybody who has bought a painting. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, I mentioned it's going to go up on the blog. I'm also going to post this, so if anybody wants to rewatch the whole thing on our Instagram, then that will also be available. So, Kay, have a lovely rest of your beautiful Colorado day.
Awesome.
I will debate going for a walk in the rain, and I'm going to pray for some sun to come out. And have a great rest of your week. It's almost a weekend, so
Thank you.
all right, have a good one, Kay. Thanks so much.
Uh-huh.
Bye-bye.